it's a session that's focused on high net worth individuals, but an important part of the session is we decided not to have high net worth individuals on the podium because it creates a little bit of a barrier. But instead what we have is two individuals and two organizations that work very, very closely with high net worth individuals. And so the reason for that is we want to create a little bit of a safe space for us to ask all the questions we want to ask about what is it like to work with them, is it good, what are the goods, what are the bads, what are the challenges, how do we approach them, but this is very much meant to be that space, a safe space for us to get into that. And so I'll kick off, and I'll kick off with some of the very, very basic questions to make sure that everyone's feeling comfortable to follow up with equally basic questions. And we will start off with what I'm calling a 10 to 15 minute masterclass on how to work with high net worth individuals, but then we will go into some of the deeper questions as well that we are exploring. So we will kick off, I'll open it up to questions, I want to hear from the audience as well, and then as time permits, we'll go into more questions. But before we get any further, let's just start with introductions. So Vanessa, we'll start with you, and then after that we'll move on to you. But tell us who you are, what organization you work for, what is your role within the organization, and what is the organization aspiring to do?
Thank you very much and good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Nyoti, and I am the CEO of the Japan Racial Equity Foundation. And it's the foundation set up by His Excellency, the former President of Tanzania. And even during the establishment of the foundation, it was very clear that His Excellency wanted to work differently and work towards more systems change. So we understand that we have a certain convening power, and we use that to be a field catalyst in certain areas. So the areas that we work in, like the focus areas, are all still passions of His Excellency, right? So anybody who knew him, who knows him, knows that these are areas he is very passionate about. So there's a very easy transition for us. So we work towards now mainly addressing two critical problems that we see in Tanzania and in Africa. The first one is how are we working together to ensure zero preventable maternal and newborn deaths, right? So around maternal and newborn health care. And then the second one is how are we ensuring that our young people are happy, they're skilled, and they're accessing decent work. Right, so around youth empowerment and development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. How are you doing? How do you feel about Zanzibar?
Good.
Is it so nice to you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Can you say something about Zanzibar? Do you know anything about Zanzibar? Is there anyone who knows anything about Zanzibar? Something you think that since yesterday maybe you have captured about Zanzibar? The shortest road at the Stone Tower, House of Wonder. Oh, that is very impressive. Actually, my name is Abdullah Ahmad Abdullah. I'm a Zanzibarian, Tanzania. So I'm at home. I would like to take this golden moment first to welcome you to Zanzibar. Welcome to Zanzibar. In Zanzibar we say, Hakuna Matata. Do you know the meaning of Hakuna Matata?
No problem.
No problem. Can you say it? If I say Zanzibar, then say no problem.
Okay.
Zanzibar.
No problem.
Then in Swahili, translate it in Swahili.
Hakuna matata.
Zanzibar.
Hakuna matata.
Zanzibar.
Hakuna matata.
Can we just have a song about Zanzibar? Okay. My name is Abdullah Hamad Abdullah. I'm working for Asma Marine Foundation. This foundation is called Asmamwini because Asmamwini, she's the youngest sister of His Excellency the President of Zanzibar, Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, and she's the founder of this organization, Asmamwini Foundation. And this organization is registered as non-profit charitable entity which is operating all over the region of the United Republic of Tanzania, and it is headquartered, it is in Dar es Salaam, and as currently I'm saying, it has been working on different projects in order to make sure that it reaches its objective. After the aim of this foundation is to help the young girls and women, because girls and women are part of our lives, but the most people who are facing different challenges compared to other people. So because of her past, Her Excellency Asma Mwinyi decided that I want to help the young girls and women so that we don't leave anyone behind. We can all travel together. Are you together? Yes. So the main objective of this foundation is to provide support to girls and women on issues such as education issues, health issues, social needs, and water sanitary issues. So we're going to learn more as we go on. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both of you. Maybe one more question about your foundation before we move on, just so we get to know you. So we don't have His Excellency and Her Excellency here. We have both of you as representatives.
Yeah, sure.
The reason for that is because we as friends want to ask you some more direct questions.
Okay.
So with foundations that are linked to public figures, we sometimes find that after the individual is less involved, the foundation fades away a little bit. So I want to hear about succession planning for your foundation. How will you live beyond the legacy of the individual?
Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful question. I think you're talking about the sustainability of the foundation. What I do believe is that, as you can see me here, I'm the youngest person in this room. Because, yeah, sure. I'm 23 years old. Yes. And currently, I'm a student of the State University of Zanzibar, my final year. So this shows that if I'm a young person, I have been given this privilege to represent this big foundation. It means that there's something inside, there's something down that the leader, Her Excellency, wants to make sure that even when she's not part of this foundation, we can take it further. Yeah. So she's just trying to empower us, to give us the strength and the courage to know many things and to be able to stand and to speak, and so that these platforms are going to help us to get a connection with other people, and we'll be able to take this foundation even further, even if she's not here with us. So I think that is one way of make sure that there's sustainability, on make sure that this foundation achieve its goals not only today, but tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Vanessa, anything to add? Similar. All right. Okay, let's get into the topic for today. So high net worth individuals. Maybe first question, just as we get into the topic, what, for each one of your foundations, what is your interaction with high net worth individuals? Are they board members? Are they funders? Do they have some other interaction? And how do you usually approach high net worth individuals?
Thank you for that question. So our interaction with high net worth individuals is all throughout our foundation. So we have high net worth individuals on our board, just being that His Excellency is the chair of the board itself, right? And then we also have been very fortunate enough to have high net worth individuals support the establishment of the foundation and now support the programming of the foundation. And for us it was very difficult because we didn't realize the network and platform that we were sitting on in our organization. So we really had to spend some time profiling our board and understanding what networks and platforms they're in, so that we can get further access to high network individuals. And so they're, like I said, they're part of our board. They support us in the operations and the development, but they also support our programming as well. And we've also been really fortunate enough to retain 2 high network individuals for more than 2 years, so going on 3rd year, with the continued annual contribution to the foundation. And we also had to identify who from the foundation engages with the high network individual. It's not everybody that engages with the high network individual. So that person is the one who helps with the introductions, helps with the initial meetings, and then we as the team and the management can then follow up on that.
Thank you so much. On top of what my fellowship said here, even as I have said before, the founder of this Asmamuni Foundation is Her Excellence, and she was very thirsty, and she wanted to see some positive change in our society, especially ensuring that she empower the young girls and women. But because she's well known, she knows she has high network, she has high connection, she knows so many people. Approaching the high network individual is very easy comparing to me because no one knows who I am. So the kind of the trust that she has is very fundamental, and we use that trust that she has with high network individuals in order to help us achieving our objective, our mission, and our vision. Yeah.
And just to add, there's also a misunderstanding that because His Excellency is our chair, we have access to every high network individual, and that's not true. What we found to be successful is high network individuals being approached by people they have a connection and a relationship with, right? So even though he can access any network and platform, right, we go with the people that have existing relationships, right? So if we need a high network individual in academia, we go to our advisors and our board members who are in academia to reach that person, right? So I think even for other organizations, it's also just understanding who you have, the networks they have access to, and who people have relationships with, because trust is the biggest factor, right? Building that trust also takes a lot of time. So if you can skip that time phase, right, it can do a lot for your organization.
So I hope everyone in the room is already doing that as you're thinking about the board members that you have. How can they help with fundraising? What are the networks and connections they have? And I think what we're hearing is a very deliberate strategy that begins to say, here are the board members, here are the networks that they have, and here's the access they can get us. It could be to funders, it could be to high net worths, it could be to organizations, but being deliberate about that. So let's continue understanding the high net worths a little bit from you. I want to understand the motivations of the high net worth individuals. So why do they decide to work with you? What are their needs that you are fulfilling?
Thank you so much. These individuals, the high net worth individuals, they have got their own vision and ambition. They have got something that they want to achieve in their lives. If their ambition is to support the community, it means they're going to look to the organization that they have a common interest, that they're going to be able to fulfill their mission. So if, for instance, in our organization, we deal on empowering the young girls and women as Asmamuni Foundation. So there are some people who are interested in helping young girls and women. So if we're able to come up with a good project that they think this is worth it, they're going to support it and be able to work with us. And the issues of the trust, as I have said before, is very fundamental because trust is everything. If trust is there, you can work well, you can reach whatever you want to do. But if there's no trust, it means you can't achieve your objective because everyone is going to work on his own. So for us, because they know this organization, the owner of the founder, the chair, she's Her Excellence. This is a well-known person. She can't do things that are going to destroy or to ruin the reputation or the image in the country. Because the president is his brother, her brother, so he knows that whatever I'm going to do, I have to do things according to the rules and regulations, the rules, so that nothing bad can going to spoil the image. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vanessa, if you can continue building on that, why does a high net worth individual not set up their own foundation, and why do they come to you instead?
Because setting up a foundation is a lot of hard work. Running a foundation is even harder. And for us, we are really their direct link to the community, to the people, right? And we spent a lot of time. We spent like 2 years understanding what the issues were, right? Engaging the community, engaging partners and government, so that when we do have conversations with them, they see us as experts and already informed on what the community needs are. So that's been our added advantage, right? When we go and propose, something that's in alignment with their vision and say, we think you supporting mobile outreach in this community will be impactful. We've already met with the community, right? We've already discussed with the district, we've already discussed with the ministry, so that once we do get that fund, it's direct implementation. So yeah, we're the direct connection to the community, but they also really on our end appreciate how we maintain their privacy, their secrecy, but also their brand, right? Because we're dealing with like USD billionaires, right? So they have a brand and they have an image, and it's really been a shifting point for me especially, because give me a log frame, give me 50 pages, technical, I can really do that. But we heard even in the plenary in the morning, they want 2 paragraphs, right? They want you to appeal to the heart, right? They want to know how the women are affected, the children are affected, and what impact that's going to make. And they also want to believe that you have their best interests in maintaining their brand and reputation, even though they're unknown. So a funny example is we have one who is in the beverage industry. So every time we have a meeting, we have to ensure that we're not putting somebody else's water bottles in the meeting, right? Because it doesn't make sense. So understanding those nuances, right, and engaging them in that way, it's been very different. It's been very different for me and for us, and it's a learning process throughout.
So very interesting, and she has reminded me something very crucial, and I'd like to share with you. There's a very short story, but we are going to come up with the lessons of the story. There was a young man and a father, and this young man one day went to his father, and he said, "Father, I'd like to know what is my value in this world, because I'm a child, but I don't, until now I'm 15 years old, I don't know my value. But I'd like to know, what is my value?" The father responded to his son and said, "My son, if you want to know your value, I want to give you a very short test." And he said, the father, he had a stone, and he took the stone and gave the stone to his son. And he said, "My son, if you want to know the value of your life, I want you to take this stone to the market. But when you are at the market, please, if someone comes to ask you about the price of the stone, don't say a word. Just raise up your 2 fingers." So that was the rule. The son took the stone to the market, and when he arrives at the market, an old woman approached him and said, "Wow, do you have this kind of stone? I'm very impressed. I want to buy it. How much is it?" The young man didn't say a word. He just raised up 2 fingers. Then the old man replied, said, "Oh, you want $2? I will give you $2 for this toy." Then the boy jumped up and ran to his father and said, "Father, father, at the market, an old woman approached and said he wanted to give, she asked me about the price of that stone. I didn't say a word, I just held up my 2 fingers, and she said, I want to give you $2. The father now said, "My son, now I want you to take the stone to the museum." Are you together? So the son took the stone to the museum, but he reminds him, when you are at the museum, make sure that if someone asks you about the price of the stone, never say a word. Just raise up your two fingers. Then the boy took the stone to the museum. When arrived to the museum, an old man said, "Oh my God, you have this stone? How much is it? I want to pay." The boy didn't say a word. He just raised up 2 fingers. Then the old man said, "Oh, you want $200 for that stone? I will give you no problem." Then the boy didn't say a word. He jumped up and goes back to his father. And he said, "My father, at the museum someone asked me about the price of this stone, but I didn't say a word. I just raised up my 2 fingers. And he said he will give me $200. Then the father told his son, the last place I want you to take the stone, it is the stone precious stone. Take this stone to the stone precious stone. The boy took the stone to the stone precious stone. Upon arriving, he saw an old woman. She's very archaic, very aging. And upon seeing the stone, she was very flabbergasting. She was very perplexing, surprising. Saying, "Oh my God, youngster, do you have this kind of stone? How much do you want? I have been looking for it for the rest of my life. How much do you want?" The boy didn't say a word. He just raised up his 2 fingers. The old woman says, "I will give you $200,000 for the stone." The boy couldn't even believe. Then said to his father, "My father, at the stone precious store, I saw an old woman and said, she will give me $200,000 for that stone." Then the father said, "You see now, my son, the value of yourselves depends on where you place yourself. If you place yourself at the right place, you're going to be valued, you're going to be respected, and you're going to be recognized according to the potential that you have." So even these people that you're talking about, they need to work with the people that they trust. They need to work with the people that they can see their value. So if we're going to work and sacrifice ourselves, commit ourselves, and work well to achieve what they want, it means they're going to look after us and we're going to succeed on what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Both of you are talking about value, right? Where do high net worths see value? So maybe let's go to that, right? So is the interest with high net worths, is it to work with communities? Is it to work with large government system change programs? What kinds of things that are attractive for high net worth individuals?
Definitely majority is to work with communities, so the people, and keeping the people central. But with that being said, we've had high networks who are interested in the systems change itself and supporting that. We've had high networks who are interested in platforms and coalitions, others who are interested in the people, and others who are interested in direct programming. So there's really no one categorization, right? And what we are now trying to do, having like this little experience working with them, is trying to understand what each high network needs, right? And why they really put their resources into those areas and into those spaces. And we spend a lot of time, I know us in the development sector, we spend a lot of time working with donors, and we've been really good, right, at identifying donors. So if there's a USID call for proposal, we all know what words to say, right? We all know how to fill those log frameworks. And I think we just need to now put the same effort into learning how to work with high network individuals. The problem is that they're all individuals, right? So you need to treat them as individuals. I would love to have one thing that works for all of them, and it does it, right? So even the time and effort needed to manage high network individuals is really, really taxing. Like, for us, it takes at least 9 months to 1 year of engagement until high network gives us funds, right? And that's a lot, right? And we now, we have the resources to support those relationship building, but if you don't have that, that's very difficult, right? So put some resources aside for that. And just on a funny story, even the way in which we engage with them. So for me, like, it was a lot of like dinners and events and stuff that I had to be going through. I'm thinking I'm wasting my time because I go with my whole story put out, right? My whole theory of change, and then at a whole dinner table, nobody discusses work. We're talking about travel to the Serengeti, we're talking about things. When am I going to share with them about this? Right? And it was, I'm like, okay. And then I was like, okay, this is what building a relationship is, right? And then I also got to understand, okay, I know why you support health, right? But I didn't understand why you support plastics. And you support plastics because you're a diver, right? So when you're diving, you're seeing all these plastics. Aha, so now my colleague Vic is here. I'm also now taking diving lessons so that when he comes back to Tanzania, I can dive with him and have a conversation. I don't know what he's talking about.
Fantastic. You've taken us exactly where we need to go. How do we get to understand high network individuals? So maybe say a bit more about what are their, what is it like? What is the experience working with them? So funding-wise, is it short-term funding, long-term funding? Do they like controlling programs? What are their reporting requirements like? What is the day-to-day working like with high network?
Okay, it depends on the kind of high network that you're going to meet. There are some people who just want to, they trust you. They give you whatever you want, then they want you to see the repercussion, the result of what you do. And you know what? We are the local communities, local people, and we understand the community in needs. For instance, I myself, I know the community, the kind of the challenges that they're passing through, their priorities, what they need, what their preference, because I'm living with them. I'm staying with them, and sometimes maybe I'm experiencing the same kind of life. If it is about the hardship, I know how hardship it is. Or if it is about the past, if it is about the hunger, I know how hunger it is. So those people, they don't understand about these issues. So they need people who know the grassroots. They need people who knows the real problems of the people of the community at the ground. You know, most of the NGOs, they tend to come up with a project just thinking that whatever they think it is the real problem that touches the common people at the ground. No. In order for us to understand what people are needing, then we have to go back to them and seek some insight and information about what they want. As my fellow said, you can't say some people need maybe to build a well, and yet they have enough water. These people maybe they need something else. Maybe they need the opportunities. They want to be entrepreneurs, they have the resources, but they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the ability to run their business. Then you can't say that I'm going to build you a road only. You just have to see the needs of these people in order for them to operate well on their businesses. They need to be empowered, to be capacity building, to be given the knowledge that is going to help them to run well their business. So we are the one, as organization, local organization, we're the one that knows the real problems of the communities. So those people, if they work with us, it is very easy for them to reach and to be able to get the kind of result that they need.
Certainly, and as we come back to you, Vanessa, maybe if you can talk a little bit about what are what are unique experiences, so especially around privacy, around publicity, high net worths tend to have unique needs there. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I think also just working in resource limited settings, we become very efficient in how we work, right? We will give you value for money, right? And that doesn't really apply sometimes to the high net worth individuals. And it's really been a balance trying to connect high networks to the community so that they can see the impact, but then not overwhelm communities because they come with all this grandeur, right? I was telling my colleagues that there's one high net worth individual, he's based in the US, and he comes with his own communications team, which is in South Africa, and they come with 2 vans.
Wow.
Right? Just for pictures and videos. Just for pictures and videos. It's extremely critical for him, right? And then he travels with an entourage as well. So even if you look now, me as an NGO, I'm like, all this money, you're chartering jets, like, we could have done twice as much, but so it's really just balancing those nuances and also trying to explain with them in terms of image what that looks like in the community and say, okay, so 3 people will go here. We also have a great photographer, right? These are the type of pictures he takes. If you're comfortable with this, can you just use one and have it be a local person rather than an international person? I think that's one aspect of it. And then, as he was speaking as well, working with, the high networks, we also need to understand some of the nuances that come with working with them, right? So, the majority of them get their money from business, right? And when business is down, their funds are down. Right? And if you ask me, I would prefer majority of our funding comes from high net worth individuals because once they buy into the cause, they don't really follow up on the nitty-gritty. Right? That's for you to then report back to them. So we put a lot of emphasis in reporting back to the high net worth individuals. And we have some say, oh, we don't need an audit, but we send them an audit. Right? And then they've also really been impressed by that type of information that we're giving them and the impact that it's had. And we always try and quantify the impact as well. Like, we did this, and your contribution was 11% of the total budget, which enabled us to get this as well. And that's kind of worked as well. But, they are high network and they require their standards, right? Even if you're not used to those standards, you shouldn't doesn't mean that you shouldn't meet those standards. And so trying working around that as well and ensuring that you can maintain that has really helped us in navigating the high network space.
Good, and as we come back to you, maybe a last question, and then I'll open up for more questions as well. But just picking up on this theme, right, we've been talking about power imbalance a lot at this conference, and the example you gave just triggered this question, right? So, right, that example is interesting, but what about in programming? So, there are needs of the communities, and we're trying to listen to communities and respond to those, but high net worths coming in probably have very strong opinions about how to spend their money as well. So how do you navigate that relationship?
Thank you so much. What we do is that we come with a clear structure, with a clear strategies. Because people say, if you fail to plan, automatically you are planning to fail. These people want to see that whatever you say and the kind of demand that they have given you matches their expectations. So in order for you to be able to utilize whatever they have been given you, then you must have a clear strategy on where you want it to go. For instance, this philanthropy, it always encourages people to have a clear path, clear vision. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? What is your path? Where do you want to go? So if you have a clear strategy and a clear structure on how you're going to utilize the money and be able to come up with a positive impact that people they need, I think this is going to work. Well.
And I think that's also part of our role, right? So we also spend a lot of time educating high net worth individuals, right? Talking about issues of equity, right, and inclusion, because we are an intermediary as well. And as he was speaking, it just also reminded me that, not every high net worth individual is for you and your organization, right? And those are some very hard decisions you need to make, but you can only make them when you're very clear on what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it, right? And it's really tough when you're looking for resources, right? But it's a really, really good distinction to have in the beginning. And then even the ones you decide to work on, there's a lot of education and sensitization just because of who they are and the access to platforms and resources they have. They might somehow forget how to engage with normal people in the community. Yeah.
It triggers a story. So years ago, a friend of mine was fundraising, and it's very hard to say no to a high net worth. So the high net worth would approached her and offered her $1 million for the NGO that she was running. And she said, look, our objectives are not aligned, and so she found the right words, but respectfully, we may not be aligned here. High net worth came back and said, okay, fine, you may have $3 million and you can do whatever you want to do.
Wow.
So, don't use it as a negotiating tactic. She was ready to walk away, so you better be ready to walk away. But it can open up the conversation in interesting ways. Okay, why don't we open up maybe to a round of questions? Maybe we'll take 3 questions at a time. I have more questions, but I want to make sure there's enough time for you. So maybe we'll start here, then we'll go all the way in the back, and then I think I saw hands somewhere here, so gentlemen. Okay, so you might want to answer.
Thank you so much. That was quite an insightful conversation. I don't know what I was doing at 23. I'm impressed. This is amazing. You're doing well. The future of Africa is very bright. Thank you, Vanessa. Very, very insightful conversation. I've learned a lot. My name is Lucy. I run Good Kenyan Foundation, and 50% of our money comes from individual donors, but no time network. I actually get money from middle class, which is a lot more work, and I love it, but they have black network money. I have some questions. So first one is that I think it's sort of answered, but how, some network stands may have almost a million agenda. So they don't present that at the beginning, and then when you start the project, that agenda comes out strongly. Have you had a situation like that, and how did you navigate it? It's very hard to say, especially when you're a small organization, and sometimes maybe you don't know the exact diligence you should do. But the question I really have is around planned giving. Have you done that? How do you approach it? Because I feel like in Africa it's such a taboo word that I'm saying when you die, I'd like some of the money that you give. So I don't know. Maybe you've ever had that. You have planned giving, and how you approach that, because I feel like it's such a sensitive topic to start. But yet, I believe there may be some people who would like to give back beyond the time. Yeah. Finally, we have so many questions. Just our last one. How do you incentivize beyond just impact reports?
We'll take 2 more. We'll come back to you, don't worry. Gentlemen on this side.
Mine is not a question, it is a contribution. My name is Eric Emani from Farmhouse Foundation. Those of you from Kenya are likely to know that Farmhouse Foundation is the 4th foundation of the Rockefeller Foundation of Kenya.
Wow.
the reason I stood up is to share just a little experience to build on what they have said. First of all, that model of an advisory board of very influential people with a very transparent and accountable board for my organization has worked wonders. About 13 years ago, I invited the board of advisors who are all extremely respected Kenyans. They only sit once a year just to listen to us, but they are the conduit of how we get the money, because they are the drivers of the companies that give us the money, they are the drivers of the CEOs that give us the money. So that model works. But also think about high net worth companies, because behind every company is an individual. Sometimes you address the individuals but forget to go. If I look at our balance sheet, we have like 200 million Kenya shillings on an endowment. This is given by individuals who own the companies who work with us on the annual programs. Yani, those people are the owners of those companies that work with us on the day-to-day. But they themselves, because of what she has said, the question of legacy, want to give as individuals because they are high net worth. So the question is asked about motivation, mainly is about legacy. I also work for Rotary. I'm a Rotarian for very many years, and I look after East and Central Africa, a position called Endowment and Major Gifts. My job is to solicit gifts between 3 million shillings to 100 million, sorry, not shillings, dollars, to millions of dollars. And I want to give you a guidance of how you approach high net worth individual. We have a 4-way process that is called identification, then cultivation, then solicitation, then stewarding. That could take anywhere from 1 year to 10 years. It doesn't matter where you are. I remember an individual in Kenya who gave us 15 million shillings. I stewarded him until he died, and his foundation gave the money to Palm House Foundation. So it can take a very, very long time. I want to end by saying, if you want to be able to do high net worth individuals, you must establish the moral authority. The moral authority of that group sitting there is the past president. The moral authority of Palm House is Mr. Kimani himself. I represent the brand. The rest you can Google Eric Kimani or Palm House. Thank you.
I have the mic. So, this is my Nika. Sustina Manya is my name. I'm from Uganda and I work for Women Alliance. I think my question to the panelists is more around how do we maintain our integrity as funders, as grantees, in a very flawed fundamental economic system. Because I really worry if I have to take on a new hobby for me to be able to fit within the negotiation of a high net worth individual. Even though it's not like my hobby, but I have to take it for specific that to be able to convince them. And then also reflecting a little bit more on the flawed economic system that we are dealing with. And I think recently the foundation and grant making is coming off as a fancy celebrity, they may look good in the eyes of social media and all that. On the other hand, these high net worth individuals are funding environmental destruction projects like palm oil and mining in certain communities that is causing violation and injustices to women and the community host people. On the other hand, they're also funding good empowerment projects. So it's really tricky to just strike a balance and say at what point do we depart from them and say this is not going to work. But some people also argue that this is reparations for Africa. As one of the people said, if you don't take the money, then other people actually take it. So I think that's my reflection, but also I think we need to have more analysis around community-led funding, and we keep building this analysis together to be able to help answers all these questions. Thank you.
Good. I promise one last question in the back, and we'll do one more round of questions after this. Let's just do one for this round. Sorry to the lady in the back in red. We will come back to you, sir. Don't worry.
Thank you. I have fought for the mic. My name is Amy Ongeso and I work for Namati. I'm based in Nairobi. We're talking about the kind of supports that we get from the foundations. I find that it's quote unquote, for purposes of this conversation, the nice ones, like health, empowering girls. But all of these are as a result of bad governance, lack of democracy. So I'm wondering if these foundations, these African-led foundations, are willing to, or if you got examples of foundations that are willing to tackle social justice issues. For example, if there's a land grab somewhere, and the reason why we're having a lot of maternal death, somebody in government is stealing money that is supposed to go to the people. This is structural injustice, it's highly political. So if you get, in this environment, business, politics, business, say what's up. So if you are donating money towards a social justice cause, I wonder if the individuals feel that their business might be a threat, and how do you work around this tension?
All right, let's start with answers to those, just so we don't get one up. Adela, you have a mic, so whatever you feel comfortable. Go ahead.
How do you go around those ones who have a hidden agenda, and how do you navigate it? Also aligned with the contribution. We deliberately also take a long time to establish a relationship with a high net worth individual. Within a year, you can tell somebody's intentions. It's very hard to hide intentions within 1 year. And this is a constant engagement and relationship building. But I think part of philanthropy and our work as well is to be very upfront and say when things are not working well, right? So we've also had some instances where we really just had to report back and say, no, this has not worked well because instead of having this intention, right, this and this is happening, but because of the relationship that we built, right, and the trust that we have, we continue with them. And others, you just have to say no, just give the money back, right? I know it's very difficult, but the issue of integrity really is central, because maybe they may not appreciate that, but somebody else will appreciate that work. And the incentive part has been also a really interesting learning curve, right? So we appreciate them in the work that they do, especially those ones who like to be anonymous, right? So we appreciate them with a formal appreciation, let's say from our board. We appreciate them with, as well as the government recognition, because majority of our work is through the government. So they also get to share and hear from the government on the impact that has made. But we also, just give gifts. We give gifts, and my staff always laughs because they're like, so you're using their money to buy them gifts? I said, yes. Where else do I get the money from? But we give really sentimental gifts as things that come from the communities and things that have been made by the youth that they're supporting and things that will remind them of the project. And for them, it's really just been a good step in the relationship. The board of advisors is key. Not everybody can have a high net worth individual on the board, but having a board of advisors is really, really central. And sitting back and thinking, who is it that I want to engage, right? And then picking advisors to access those networks and platforms is so critical, right? The challenge with high net worth individuals is we don't know all of them, right? And we're like, So I've only been at the foundation for 3 years. I'm only now at the point in our relationships with them where I'm asking, so do you have any other friends or people you know who can say that? It's taken some time, so we don't know who they are. So we can't even target them the same, right? But just having a group of influential people, and you don't even have to look far, right? It doesn't have to be a minister or former president. A lot of retired people have a lot of expertise and want to be giving their time into that. Yes, so in terms of even, I did mention in the presentation when I was speaking before, but the challenges of high network individuals is also, of course I said, it depends on business, but it's also not consistent. Right? It's not something that you can count on. So something that we have done really well is we kind of position their money to do programming and what we call strategic interventions. And those strategic interventions then go towards the social justice issues and the systems change, right? So we try and have a balance on those two. We report on both of them as well. Right? And that's why we also got high network individuals who were really supporting now the systems change work, because they saw what we were able to do and we reported on it, and they're like, this is interesting, I can continue to support that. So also balancing the resources that you have to be strategic, right? But also programmatic in the sense that you're having the output that you need. So how do you maintain, so there was a comment on the community-led funding analysis, and that I think is so critical, it's so key. And I would channel that and support that any day. And that's why we also always give them a breakdown of the percentage that they've contributed towards a project, even if they contributed 100% of the finances towards the project. Because we're saying there's government time that went into that, that's not included, right? There's community time and resources, right? We also have a board of advisors that are pro bono, and if we were to cost their time, it's a lot of dollars we'll never be able to manage, right? They're also in-kind contributions, we put ourselves there as well. So whenever we do that, we show them, yeah, you gave 100% of the resources, but there was so much in terms of contribution and the cost sharing. So it's only something now that we've been able to do the co-financing and the cost sharing beyond the financial contributions, which then allows them to see that, okay, I enabled the process, right? But I wasn't the process, but I enabled the process.
Thank you so much for that good response. And I also like to add on the issues of social justice. We have said that most of the social issues that happens because some of the politicians doesn't fulfill their duties well, right? And this is a big problem. But what I know is that when the president or any person who has a high position and decided to delegate powers, he appoints people. When he appoints those people, he appoints those people with the vision that they're going to work for the people, right? But the problem is that in Africa mostly, we fail to differentiate between being a public servant and being a politician. Some people, they are politicians, but when they become public servants, they still practice politics. In order of doing what the people need, they're just doing things in order to achieve their goals and their mission. So we as people, sharing or helping people, it is not very easy. It is always very difficult. That's why we said we learn to give not because we have many, but because we understand how it feels to have nothing. We can't see our people dying. We can't see our people struggling and just enjoying ourselves just because the politician doesn't fulfill their duty well. No, we have to do something in order to save our people. And the things that we can do as a community is to come up with different initiatives or entities that are going to try their level best to tackle those challenges that are facing the common people. For instance, someone says, in this world, Be good even to the people who are not good to you. It is not their badness, that can change you, but it is your goodness that may change them. So we're here for the people and we work for the people, we don't work for the government. So our duty as NGOs is to make sure that we bring that positive things and positive things that are going to bring sustainable development in our community instead of focusing whether the politicians are doing the right thing or not doing the right thing. Because not all the people have the same heart that the one you have. So people are different, and it doesn't stop us from doing the things that our community needs for us to do for them. Thank you.
Thank you. You just also reminded me of the last question. It's very tricky, and I remember one time we had a high net worth individual where we were sharing a project we wanted to do an education, and he said, oh, this aligns with me and everything, but I will not support this project because ideally this is the role of the government. If everything was working well. Right? And this is why we also are really working hard to garner more high net worth individuals from Tanzania as well, because they understand the system and they understand how it works, right? And also being very intentional on all our projects and programming to involve the government and to ensure to them, or to mention to them that, you know, the sustainability and the success of this program is you guys doing well. And you guys doing well, right, is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So even coming at that table, and we do understand that we have an advantage because of our chair's name and his reputation, but sitting at a table and having an honest conversation with the government as well has helped us navigate some of those social justice issues. And you know, this whole idea of high net worth individuals, we also realize that it's really, there is a standard definition, it's really subjective, right? We go into settings where we are poor, we are very, very poor. Us in this room will be considered high net worth individuals, right, to those communities, right? So also just understanding the different layers and the nuances, right? And understanding what we can get from different networks and collaborations and partners at different levels, right? Because we're all high net worth individuals here as well, and being able to kind of navigate that and also change our own understanding on even the resources that we would require from them. Something that's also helped us as well is, yes, we want funding and we want to funding to maintain our work and to continue to do more work in the community. But we also ask for other resources as well, right? You know, spending an hour with His Excellency or spending an hour with like a renowned business leader in Tanzania is maybe more beneficial to youth in business who wouldn't have had that time to engage that individual. So starting those relationships in that way, and then also then getting buy-in from them and continuing to engage with them beyond that.
I'll open it up to a final round of questions, but as we do that, if there are people, right, the last thing that I'm going to ask the panelists to close with also is, what are some of the innovations we can think about in which high networks can be working with grassroots organizations to bring around systems change? And so what are ideas that we've not explored, that we've not heard about yet? And so if you have an idea to share, I'll ask you to share it in this round before we come back to the panelists. But if you don't have an idea and if you have a question, that's fine as well. I took away the mic from the gentleman in the back, so we'll start with that first, and then we'll move up in the room.
Hello. Hi, my name is Simon from the African Foundation, and thank you so much for the wonderful insights and the nuances around working with a high net individual. And I know you hinted this, Vanessa, but I wondered if you can dig a little bit deeper around how do you marry the expectations of the local communities with the expectations of these individuals. I know sometimes it can be two different worlds, and becoming in between and making sure that the community agency remains, even as you also position yourself to serve the interest of the high net.
Excellent. Lady here, and lady there.
Thank you so much to our panelists for such an informative and very pragmatic presentation. My name is Tsitsi. I'm a development consultant based in Zimbabwe. So I'm wondering also how can networks such as EAPN or even APN leverage and access such high net worth individuals and also work with them, given that trust is the major currency? So how can they even know who is where and doing what? How do you approach them? How do you engage them? Because I think for your excellencies, it might be easier because these high net worth individuals already sort of have a natural attraction because of their other interests, maybe based on business. But how can a network like APN or even EAPN know about them? And then, what strategies would you then suggest they could employ? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Martha Chikahiro. I'm from Uganda. I work with Prospera International Network of Women's Funds. There's so many contributions I really wanted to leverage on, but I'll start with hers. So for Prospera, one, we're a network within the feminist funding ecosystem, and I'm pretty sure many of you in the room know about the Mackenzie Scott gifts that started getting out early last year. Now within the network that I work with, which is a network of 44 women's funds that range from global funds to national funds, a number of them received gifts from Mackenzie Scott, right? So this was like a huge injection of money. I'll just share it with Manjuri here. That it was a huge injection of money into the funding ecosystem. We didn't know what to do. Many of the funds didn't even have systems that can hold that sort of money, right? So the reason why networks like Prospera, which I work for, are critical is because we were able to we have been doing it, it's a continuous process, bringing them together so that they keep learning and sharing. What are you doing? What systems have you put up in place? What can we borrow? What can we tweak? What can we adopt within our existing systems? But I also wanted to say, so I wanted to say that before I forget it, but I think for us it's also how do we document our learnings with, engaging with high net worth individuals, because right now these are new progressive players in the ecosystem, and we need to leverage on that, right? And a lot of them, as much as we see them as individuals, these people speak to each other, at cocktails, at bars, when they go yachting, when they go on cruises, that sort of thing. And they really want to make an impact collectively, right? So again, this goes back to what you're saying. How do we leverage on that power that they have together and keep mobilizing resources together as well? Because right now we're seeing the power of collaboratives. That's where we're headed. No one is working in silos anymore, right? So there's a lot for us to reflect on. And the last thing I wanted to say, so within the network, again, we also, Sustin had mentioned about acknowledging, the harmful economic system that we operate in. Frida Fund, which is one of the funds within our network, when they received this gift from Mackenzie Scott, they were very careful to put out a statement to say, we acknowledge that we received this gift, fine, but we also acknowledge that this money is money from a capitalist system which has enabled, the system of oppression that we are trying to fight against, right? So again, I think it's also being careful to always have a political positioning as organizations that receive this money, because we also don't want to distort our politics, our internal politics, as organizations that that are fighting for social justice. So that was a lot of reflection and questions. Yeah.
think we had a few more questions here. Yeah. Right in front.
Thank you. Beautiful work, and thank you for sharing. I have a question, and that could also turn into an idea if it's not already implemented. My name is Shalina, and I work with the Afghan Education Service, which is a not-for-profit, and we run schools from preschool to high school. My question is, do you have a system where you would induct and mentor younger people? Among 1,600 students that we have a huge group that actually feel this is not reachable. Young people like yourselves, having achieved and walked the path, are there ways in which you handhold other young people or much younger people to work with the mindset? I usually tell the students that I don't look at you as leaders of tomorrow, because I think our young minds are leaders of today. And they have the insight and the grassroots engagement immediately. And as an institution ourselves, we expect that for every output to work with the communities that surround them. So there is a potential for direct grassroots level engagement. If it's not there, then that's an idea. But if it is there, I'd love to understand processes and ways in which this could be taken down to upcoming students who can at 23 be where you are.
Right next to you.
Thank you, and I think I'm building on a question that was asked by someone about you picking up hobbies, because that's what they're doing. And I feel also in terms of time, sometimes it's not a question of integrity. It's like, I need to see you now. You probably rather engagement, but you have to make time understanding what the work they do. It is that you decide, oh, I'm a martyr, this is my life now. You strike a balance.
Yeah. I think last two questions in the front.
Thank you so much. My name is Primo Vuni. I work for Alliance Force Development for Uganda, and also we do a lot of maternal child health program, nutrition, and also supporting the youngsters. Now, my question is, I'm just a little bit curious to know at what point did you say it's time for high network? At what point? Because probably the point at which you started from could be a different point where some of us started from. Because the foundation was built around those who are high level, around excellencies. So I'm a little bit curious to know at what point did you say, or what were the triggers that it's time for high network? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So mine is not a question. I just wanted to attempt to answer the ladies, because I think we're in the same position where we don't have very big names heading our foundations. One of the things that we've worked with is just to try and have conversations, fireside chats around certain topics, then invite people in our peers who are mid-level management, starting to be senior management, and they definitely know one network individual who knows someone who we can give, and sometimes when they're involved in that level of conversation where we don't have any direct ask, then they sort of carry in your heart and they know what you're doing, and one day they might reach out to you and let you know. So that's what we can devise in terms of trying just put up conversations, some online, some physical. One of the conversations we had once on Facebook was then it kept being viewed and viewed, and someone can use that. Then also just sort of, again, same thing we do with the donors is just mapping out your friends. You might be so shocked within your friendship, went to Alliance, and then even a joke about which school someone went to and who could be in that school. So you could have the resources within your network that you maybe don't realize because you're trying to reach to this high person and you will not find His Excellency Jakai Kikwete in your platform, but there could be someone around here who knows him. Maybe she works for him and I get to talk to him and she one day mentioned it to him. Some of the donations we've gotten are from people out of Kenya with our mentors who work here, and then they put in their LinkedIn, and then one day their boss just asked them, what is this that you do? And the boss is like, okay, I'd like to do again. So there could be resources around you, and just map them out. And then plan to give you a meeting to you.
Thank you. So, from Simon, how do you marry the expectations of local communities and individuals? Just a caveat, right? So, as a foundation, as an NGO in Tanzania, we do have policies and procedures on meaningful engagement, right? We use a human rights-based approach, right? We have policies on participation as well. Those are not thrown away just because of high-net individuals' contribution to the foundation. So, because, even a bit more sensitive for us as well is the perception that some of our engagement, the harmful perception that some of our engagement can bring to the community based off of his excellency's name. So also very critical to ensure that as we are working with the high network individual, they understand the approach, right? They understand the issue and the problem, and they can approach communities with dignity. And then on the other end of communities as well, because most of NGO work has also really distorted community and community mobilization and strength, is the expectations as well of communities in terms of donors, right? So also clearly stating to them the project, what is coming, their participation and what they'll get from that. So we're very, very clear from the beginning. We have very difficult conversations, right? And that's something that I'm learning to do more and more easily, right? You have very difficult conversations with the high network individual and with the communities as well, just to ensure that you are also staying within your own guidelines and procedures, as well as just doing equitable work. So that helps us a lot. How can networks leverage and access high net worth individuals, especially the EAPN, the APN? And I think that can also be a role of the members as well, to share this information, right? So we work, our motto is transforming lives through collaboration. And that means we have to have a network of partners who we work with in order to achieve our mission. So oftentimes we do get requests, or we do get interest from high net worth individuals that don't apply specifically to us, that we share to other people, right? And that in the beginning was a big game changer, because we were like, what? You're sharing information on a donor? Like, you guys could have done it yourselves, but it's not within our mission and what is it that we want to do. So it could also be one of our roles to share that information as it becomes available. Yes, documenting our learnings is definitely critical, and something that we also as a foundation are just getting to do now, right? Documenting why a person gives, when they give, going to the planned giving, is something that there is a gap in that area. So I mentioned that we have 2 high net worth individuals that give now almost annually to the foundation. And it's the way in which even we craft our requests to them, right? So we reach out and say, thank you so much for your contribution. We've been able to do X, right? And for the coming year, we have a current funding gap of this much. We're really looking forward to seeing how you can contribute to that. But we've built long-lasting relationships with them, so we're very also confident in asking them to give on an annual basis. We don't tell them you're going to be giving on an annual basis, but we ask them on an annual basis, or remind them to give on an annual basis. And we mentioned also, the visibility of, you mentioned online and then on social media. A big realization for us, especially in Tanzania. And Prudence, she's at this conference. She came to our office and she told us this. She said, people who have money read newspapers. So make sure you're in the newspaper often. right? And we went to meet, so this is not a high net worth individual, but we went to meet a donor. And even before, we started the introduction, said, yeah, I read about you guys in the newspaper. So it's really true. And then you go, and so you go to high net worth individual offices, you see a plethora of newspapers on their desk, right? They intentionally read the newspaper, so continue to invest in print media. I know we're digital, we're social media, but the engagement in print media is still very critical. And the time, yes. Of course, for us, for me specifically, I only do things that I'm interested in, right? So if I have a certain interest in alignment with a high net worth individual, I pursue that. And I have a toddler, I have a 3-year-old, right? So my time is very limited in the office. So these weekend things, evening things, Nicholas, I work with him, is laughing. They all know me in the office. Like, I really had to set boundaries, otherwise I would be working for the high net worth individual, right? So I'm also very clear on why I'm declining an invitation. I can't do that. I have a bath time and bedtime schedule that I have to stick with. So yes, you do get a call oftentimes. Can you come to my office? I have an hour, right? I can't do that. I'm also working on something equally important, but I can speak on the phone now if you can. We'll work around another time. And in the beginning, it was also very hard for me to be able to navigate those relationships. But I know now, even the ones we work with, when they first meet, they're like, so how's your toddler? I'm like, yeah, he's good. And even, last week I was at a dinner, and they're like, so you're here till like at 10 p.m. Where's your son with? I said, with his father, so that's why I'm here. But it's just being very clear with that and building relationships. They understand as well, because when they are urgently called, right? Unless it's the president calling them, they wouldn't drop everything, right? So doing the same as well, in a very respectful manner, has been one of the ways in which we can get around the time. At what point did we say it's time for high net worth individuals? When we were struggling to get donors who would help us with institutional development and systems change. Traditional donors, we said we can't do this. So we reached out to high net worth individuals, and they supported that. And then that led into programming as well. We all have organizations, and we all know the burden we go through in terms of the operations and the admin, right? We're really having a hard time just finding. We found donors who were okay with the causes and were supporting the causes, but establishing a foundation, right? We're a trust, so our own board put in money to establish, right? But we had a gap. And that's when we turn to high net worth individuals. And then the one who donates to us repeatedly started in operations and now is in programs. Okay? So we really didn't have any choice, and then we went through that avenue, and it's something that we hopefully would continue with. We were desperate.
Fantastic. And in closing up the last piece, if you can also talk about this last point, which is what is the role that high net worth individuals can play in this development ecosystem, if you want to call it that? Where are they?
Yeah, I think they play a very crucial role because problems are part of life, and the reality is that the world is dynamic by itself. So if the world is dynamic, it means that the more we solve the problems, the more other problems comes. So we just need these people to support us, to help us in order to have that kind of sustainable development. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm told furiously that we are out of time. So last couple of things. Lunch is served both on this floor as well as on the next floor. And then the next session starts at 2 o'clock sharp, so please make sure you're back in the room by then. But please join me in thanking our very esteemed